All right. Hey, everybody. We're back.
Hey everyone, yeah, we're back. We should have said at the last episode, I'll be back. And then, you know,
Yeah.
we're actually
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. So I'm Brother Jared. This is my brother Rold. And
Hey everyone.
if you forgot who we were, I'm in the central United States. Rold is in South Africa. And
Yep.
we met through a chance encounter, both working for the same company. And we've just stayed super best friends ever since. So it's
Yeah.
we decided to do this podcast, and it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah, talk about roller coaster. I mean, we've had a lot of life things happen. We've had illness. We've had financial struggle. We've
Yeah,
had it all.
yeah,
In the process of trying to launch this kind of podcast and things. So just to say, we don't do this. We don't get to do this full time. We'd love to. But for now, we do what we can, and sometimes it means we miss a week or two, and but we'll always be back.
yeah,
We this is a passion of ours. It's something we love doing, love talking about. So it is
yeah,
good to be
absolutely.
back, though, and especially just hanging out with each other. Like that's prize A.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So, when we last left off, um, we had gotten into the story of Abraham a little bit, and whose name is still Abram and Sarai. Their names haven't changed yet, but
Yeah.
we got to see just sort of some early stuff that they did. Um, some mention of the birth of Isaac and things like that. But now we're sort of drilling down into these sort of um, I don't know, these sort of like big important events. So the Bible kind of
Mm.
up to this point, it's just been like the creation, and that's like one chapter, and then like the fall, and that's like another chapter, and then like the flood and the scattering after the Tower of Babel, and just kind of doing these big leapfrogs. And it gets to Abraham, and it slows way down, but it's still
Mm.
like well, there's some drama, and then it fast forwards a whole bunch of years, but now it's like really drilled down. Now we're like taking like multiple chapters just for like a single day's worth of content. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting that um it's like this must be very important, and I think it is, and I think we'll see why. But
Yeah.
this
Like I
is
said, I think
hmm,
it kind of drills down, a little bit more into who they are, who God is, and so it's not just overviews of a story. Now we're getting into like more of their personal lives and experiences and family and their relationship with God. So it does take a little bit of a deeper dive from here, like for now.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So so coming up today, we have the sixth time that God and Abraham have talked. We have another prophecy of Isaac's birth. Um
Yeah, which is
Abraham
really
does this.
interesting because
Yeah,
they were doubting the last time already. Like,
yeah,
is this possible? Can this happen? And
yeah,
God's got to say it again or reiterate. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is really interesting that God's willing to reiterate. I mean, that's he's willing to put up with our doubts. I think that's just super interesting.
Yeah.
Uh
Yes.
Abraham does something that's extraordinary. And
Massive.
once we read through this part of it, it's gonna be like, dude, shut up. I remember who you're talking to, and then we see like who are you talking to? Like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It's like, good grief, God is powerful.
Yeah.
And then the Lot's big escape, and then the consequences. And so um
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna look at all that today.
Yeah, and I think just on the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, I think everyone kind of knows the story just because I think it's such a massive event. But this is one of those, we see the creation, which is a massive event that affects nature and everything. Then we see the flood, which was just as massive. Like, I mean, that affected huge, infected the entire world. And then here we see it's more localized, but the effects are still found today of what happened at Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's just,
Hmm.
I think that for me is always interesting. Like a lot of people will try and explain these things away. And but the Bible literally spoke about these things as they happened or just after they've happened, and the effects are still found today. So we have evidence,
Yeah.
which for my brain is like, that's real. We can trust what was said in the Bible.
Yeah.
So, but I might be jumping a little ahead there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I love apologetics and archaeology and all that stuff. Like I really nerd out about a lot of those things too. So yeah, I get where you're
Yeah,
coming from.
100%. Well, so we look at Genesis 18, and this is where, again, God visits Abraham. And like we see, it's like for the sixth time. But this time, God comes with what we would say like three mysterious visitors, because like we
Mhm.
don't know who they are, what they are. There's no clear description of this is my name, this is who. But
Yeah,
Abraham has got kind of like a, I don't want to call it a sixth sense. We call it like a discernment. Like, he knows like this is
yeah,
someone important. This is
yeah.
not just some random traveler, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because these two beings that we I mean I've always thought of them as angels, but they may not
Yeah.
be. It doesn't really say what they are. They're just messengers from God, and so if you just kind of short circuit and say like they're probably angels, they do some really fascinating stuff. They eat and they walk and they talk and when they get to when
They're
they get to
physical.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're like physical things. Like when they get to Sodom and Gomorrah, they like they like talk to Lot and they like grab him and pull him back into his cabin and they but yet they can do miracles. They strike everybody with blindness and stuff. And so so they're really powerful things, whatever they are. Um and also they're with God, which uh you if you read through the whole scripture, um they it's very rare that they mention God and something else. It's usually
Mm,
like God in the burning bush. It's just God in the burning
mm,
bush. The pillar of fire by night and pillar of cloud by day. Like that's just God, like alone. And
mm.
so uh, once in a while you get an image of like God and the host of heaven is doing something, and so God with a bunch of beings. But it's a lot rarer than just having like just um all these visions and stuff people have. It's like, oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and then like God is up on his throne.
Yeah.
He dwells in unapproachable light and things like that. Like he's like separate. But in this verse, he's just down on the earth, walking around, having a meal with a friend, and I think
Yeah.
that's super interesting.
Yeah. I like what you said there, because it's not, you're right. Like we don't often see that when God appears, like there's that audience with him. He
Hmm.
normally appears solo to people. And this is one of those really unique situations. So I've never really
Yeah,
thought of it that way. That's quite interesting.
yeah,
Um, and so obviously we see then that like Abraham recognizes the Lord, like Adonai, and then offers hospitality. We're going to look at that in a little bit. But then God reaffirms his promise, which is a big part of this chapter, because it's like, Abram and Sarai are old. They are beyond, they've already made a big mistake. They've had another child with Sarai's maid servant. And so, like, we've
yeah.
got all this
Hagar.
drama. And it's like, oh, Hagar, yeah. And so we get to this place now where they've been doubting. They're like, oh, how's this ever going to happen? It's impossible. We're too old. And God comes back, and this is like what you mentioned earlier. It's just that patience of He knows we're flawed, but He still challenges that faith, because I think one of the key things for me out of this passage is that, and I love this verse, is that is anything too hard for the Lord? Because I think in our minds we often think like
Yeah,
this is an impossible situation, but with God, like the He breathed stars, He spoke the earth into being. Like, is anything too hard for Him? If He can do that, surely conceiving or helping a couple conceive a child is like
yeah,
child play. Excuse the pun.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. It it's one of those things that I fall into this too. Like, um, there's a level of difficulty after which we just think it's not hard anymore. Like God just
Yeah.
made stars. Like, well, can God make stars? Oh yeah, absolutely, God can make stars. There's a whole bunch of them up there. Like, do you know how hard it is to make a star? Like,
Or
it's
a
crazy
planet.
hard. Like nobody on Earth could do it, even if they wanted to. All the people working together for millions of years wouldn't be able to produce one single star. I don't think. They're
Yeah.
really, really, really hard to make, and God just made them all. Um, and but things like, is God gonna take care of me if I lose my job? What about, I don't have a child yet, and I really want one. Am I gonna find
Yeah.
the right spouse? Like my sister isn't, uh she doesn't know Jesus, but I really want her to, like things like that that just seem like, oh man, I'm so worried, I'm so worried, I'm so worried. But if God can do all the big stuff, like he can do the little stuff too. It's just you understand those situations well enough to be able to worry about them. And there's a
Mm.
level at which it's just so far beyond you that you literally don't have the capacity to worry. And so you just don't. You've never woken up and worried that the strong nuclear force is going to continue to operate inside of atoms to keep everything in the world tied together. You've never worried about that one time in your entire life. You never even thought to worry about it. But
No.
there is nothing in science that tells us that that's going to stay that way forever. It's absolutely nothing. It's just, it's like the speed of light. It's like, well, what if the speed of light changes? Well, if it did, the world would be really different. What's stopping it from
Yes.
changing? We have no idea. But you never worry about that stuff because it's so far beyond us, we can't understand it. But yet,
Yeah.
those things, they like initial conditions of the world, like they were set by something. We just don't understand what
Yeah.
that something is. And so it's just one of those things, like nobody ever worries about it. And yet your
Yeah.
continued existence moment by moment relies on those things. And that's
Yeah.
way harder than getting a job or having a child or anything like that. So,
Totally.
but I also fall into worrying about things that seem big to
Yes.
me. And I just have to remind myself over and over of this truth. Like, there's just so much more that God worries about. I say God worries about it, that God's in control of, that you have absolutely no chance of ever improving it or changing it or anything like that. And
Yeah.
yet God just is doing it moment by moment by moment. And you don't have to pray for it to happen, it just occurs. And I think that that
Right.
stuff is totally wild.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of flows into the next thing there, and a big part of this is that God comes again and reveals His plan, not just for Abraham and for Sarai, but for the whole world basically, because all of the offspring come from that really. But then we look at like Sodom and Gomorrah, but like this is the part that also, like you say, we are human beings. We've lived through this. Is I wish God would sometimes reveal His plan
Hmm.
because it would
Yeah.
just like then my brain will be like, okay, now I can live with that. I can see the end. But a lot of times he doesn't. And that's okay. It doesn't mean he can't do it. But it's really interesting that he at this point reveals his plan. And this happens throughout scripture as well. He will reveal his plan, but he doesn't do it for every single detail all the time.
Hmm.
That's where I think the faith element comes in. And Abraham, we know him as the father of faith, and like he's acted in that faith so many times. I think that's just interesting though, is that God comes and goes, hey, listen, here's the plan, and yet they still doubt. But anyway, and then we see, we've already spoken about this, but like you said, it seems a little bit annoying with Abraham constantly asking and asking and asking and asking something. But we're going to see that he negotiates with God from 50 righteous down to 10. So
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. And then we got
Pretty
Genesis
wild.
19. And yeah, this is a massive event.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll read through. I mean, we're not going to read through the chapter. You read through it on your own, but we'll do a deeper dive into it. It's quite interesting the things that happen. The Lord has astounding mercy on Lot, astounding mercy
Yeah.
on Lot. Um, and I think part of that is just because, well, I think part of it is that God loves Lot, but I also think that God loves Abraham enough that God is like going the extra mile to intervene on Lot's behalf. And
Mm.
I think that's really, really interesting. So, so these two angels who were having a meal with Abraham earlier, like they get to the city. Um, it's one of the first times in the Bible where you've got like, chapter 2 of something, and it's just like a continuation of the story. It's really interesting. So these angels having a meal with Abraham, they leave, and what's interesting is they get to or they get to, I guess Sodom, in the evening. Like, it actually took them some time to get there. They seem to have walked on the road at a time that
Mm.
would be appropriate to walk. I guess, which is strange to me. Like, why don't they just become invisible and just fly over there? And then maybe they do. The Bible just doesn't record it. But they
Yeah.
get there at about the time it would take you to walk. Um, the city is very, very wicked. They want to do stuff to the guys, and the angels have to defend Lot. Um, but Lot is like, he's being told like you got to run, you got to get out, but he's like lingering, doesn't want to get out.
Mm.
The angels help them again over and over, and then very sad, Lot loses his wife. So Mrs. Lot, she does something, and we'll look more into what she does. And then the
Yeah.
Lord just destroys, just utterly destroys. There's a valley, um, and I can't remember the name of the valley. Hinnom Valley? I don't know. I can't remember the name of it right now. I haven't looked this up.
Mm.
So there's a valley where we know the cities existed, and if you dig down in the valley, there's this layer of ash, as I've been told, where you can like see like there's been some kind of maybe like a volcanic event or something like that. We're not 100% sure what it was, but yeah, city just burned down, and that happened.
Mm.
Um, and and it's interesting because Abraham is looking on this. He's seeing the smoke rise from a distance, so that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, when people, and I definitely did this at first, and I think in my early days before having enough understanding and reading through things properly, I think I even maybe preached this. So if you ever heard me say this, I'm sorry. But, I think we immediately assume that Lot is wicked, like he's
Hmm.
part of this city. But I think it's something interesting because then if he was part of the city and so wicked, I don't think God, being just, would have spared
Yeah.
him. Even if Abram asked, I think it would have been maybe a little bit different, I think.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a big story, and we'll probably cover this a little bit later, but there is a big element of compromise here where he might not have completely given into what's going on around him and the city and the sin and all that kind of stuff, but he's definitely willing to turn a blind eye to some of it, to overlook. And so, does that make him wicked? I don't think so. I do think it makes him compromised.
Hmm.
And I think that's why the Lord goes, there's still hope for Lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to, like you said, also because of
Yeah.
Abraham, but there is, like, Lot's not completely given into the
Yeah.
nature of the city. So, like, there is a room for
Yeah.
repentance. There's room for God's salvation in certain circumstances like this.
Yeah. If you do like a character study of Lot, he starts off like he's Abraham's nephew, right? And so he gets a choice like, we own too much stuff, so Lot's wealthy. We own too much stuff. The land can't bear us both. Pick the area you want to go to, and he picks like this super excellent area, and Abraham gets the leftovers basically. But Abraham does it on purpose. It's a choice. It's not like Lot. Um, it's not like Lot was evil in making that choice. He picked the best land.
Hmm.
But apparently he didn't stay in the best land, because by the time we catch up with him again, he has moved into the city. And what is that about? Maybe he still owns some stuff, but he's hired city people, and they're out there working the fields for him, and he's living, uh, you know, in comfort probably inside the city. And there's shops, and people are breaking bread in the mornings, and there's probably, I don't know if they have coffee. They probably don't have coffee, but they have some kind of warm drink, and there's people at the gates, and they're conducting daily business, and lots mixed up in all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a verse in Second Peter, which I would have to look it up. Second Peter 2:7, let's call it, where Peter says that God rescued Lot, who was a righteous man who's being vexed in his heart at all the wickedness that was around him, but yet he was able to rescue him from destruction. And if that's true, then God can rescue us from destruction too.
Mm.
And so I think that that's a great reminder. Lot really was a righteous person, but he was mixed up in stuff. He should not have been in that city. I don't think. I don't. I think he should have stuck with Abraham. I think that's
Yeah.
what should have happened. Him and Abraham should have kept closer ties, and but I do think he got compromised. I really do.
Yeah. And then, I think, like you say, he should definitely not have been in that city, but he also should definitely not have been dragging his feet when God's like, I'm going to destroy it.
Oh
Like,
yeah, 100%.
let's
Yeah,
get out.
100%. And we can see what Lot's daughters do, who
Yeah,
um, they make some really compromised choices at the end of the story. And so
totally.
I think
Well,
they learn the ability to compromise from their dad. I think uh,
yeah,
I think Lot's wife was extremely very compromised. And we'll look
yeah,
at that, I think, probably as we go along.
totally. Yeah, so we've kind of met some of these characters, we've mentioned them, and as you like Jared said, we're not going to read through the whole both chapters. It just takes time for this, but we always encourage you go read it for yourself, read it more than once, and try and pick out the different characters. But here's a basic list. We've kind of introduced them to you. We've looked at a basic overview of those two chapters and what's kind of going on. So we're going to take a little bit of a closer look. And so if we look at the first major event, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier, is like Abraham sees these people coming to him and he recognizes, obviously in his spirit, like this is God. He like immediately recognizes this is God with two other people. And like we said, maybe angels, we don't know. We don't know who they are.
Mhm.
But he then goes, let me get a little bread. Now, in my mind, that's just like, oh, I've got like the last of the month in my fridge. I'm going to give you just what I have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
instead, we see like literally the opposite. He just makes like this whole feast. Like that confused me. I was like, why say, oh, I'm just going to give you something little? Is it because he sees the greatness of who's in front of him? Or is it just that's his general character? It's like, well, for him, a little is just a feast.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's like an
Yeah,
interesting,
that's a really great. I had never thought of that before, because it could just be a reflection of his character. Like maybe he just does this for everybody, and
yeah,
he
like,
happened to do it to God. And one time God showed up. Um, that's really interesting. But he does use that word Adonai. Um, and that's a very telling word, because that's sort of the um what I'm not completely certain that this is correct. So you have to like go on the internet and check me.
yeah,
The word or the name Jehovah is a what they call a portmanteau of the word or the name Yahweh, which in Hebrew, like there's no vowels or anything, so they just spell out
yeah,
like you know Yahweh. But but they don't want to use the name of God, the proper name of God, because it's considered disrespectful, and they just, out of an abundance of caution, anytime that name occurs, they plug in the letters Adonai. And sometimes the way they would write it is they would write the word Adonai in between the letters of Yahweh. And when you combine all that together and then you like transliterate it, it becomes the word Jehovah. And so sometimes you've heard like Jehovah Adonai, because they'll kind of write it that way when you're reading it, you read from right to left, actually. That way when you're reading it, you don't accidentally say the name of God. So uh but whenever you see that show up, Adonai, um usually in the Old Testament, you will see the word like Lord, and it'll be in all caps, but like the L will be like a taller all caps. And whenever you see
Mm,
that, that means that there's something special about the way they're using like the word. It's like it's not actually the name of God. It's like this sort of like softer name, I guess. I'm referring to God. I just don't want to use his actual real name because I don't want to be
mm,
disrespectful. And so you actually catch that all throughout the whole Old Testament. And our
yeah.
English does that too. We uh, when we're translating the Bible into English, we'll do that as well. We'll just translate it in such a way that it's like the word Lord a lot more often than it is the word God.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that Abraham, he does seem to have identified that it's God right from the jump,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Like, like I say, how did he know? Because God didn't
Hmm.
announce himself. He just immediately knew, ran there, is like, this is God. And I'm pretty sure there's the presence of God that, that's a whole side quest, because I think, in our mortal frame, if God had to pitch up, I don't think we would be able to not recognize him.
Yeah.
Uh just purely because of our sinful nature, and like sin cannot stand in his presence. Like, I think there will be things, that this is undeniably, this is God. Um, but then it begs the question, I think, like with Jesus, then, he was
Hmm.
fully God and fully man, but people still didn't recognize him. They still,
Yeah.
so I wonder, in our day and age with all the wickedness in that, would we recognize if God was walking in the midst of us? Um, would that be limited to those who know him,
Mm.
in our faith, or would it be limited, or would it just everyone, you would just know this is God?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. Yeah. I suppose God has the ability to reveal or not reveal as he so chooses.
Yep.
I guess is what that's about. Um, when we get
Yeah.
to the New Testament, which is going to be a minute, um,
Yeah.
but when
It's
we
gonna
get
be
to
a
the New
while.
Testament, there's some really interesting things that Jesus says. He says that he talks in parables so that to those whom it is given to understand are able to understand, but it'll be remain a mystery to everybody else. And
Yes.
that is that's a fascinating position, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. And, and so just to kind of this main event, this one event, I think there's a couple of things to think about. There's, recognizing God, and the privilege of, like, God, like you say, if that's the case, he's revealing himself in that way. Is like, if he's revealing himself to you, that's a privilege. I think it's not a right. It's definitely an amazing privilege. Are we recognizing that? But then, just if hospitality is your thing, like, what would that look like in your community?
Hmm.
We're not meant to just keep our faith to ourselves, keep these things to ourselves. But what would that look like? Bigger picture, right?
Yeah,
So,
great thoughts.
okay, hey,
Yeah, one of the things that happens during this uh, little exchange when they're sitting down to eat the meal is God turns to Abraham and says, "I'm going to visit you again about this time next year, and Sarah is going to have a son." And now Sarah is 90 when this happens, and so she's in her tent. She lets out a chuckle. Um, Now God asked Abraham, "Why did your wife laugh when I said that?"
oh my
And
goodness,
Sarah gets like really nervous, and she's like, "Well, I didn't laugh." Now I'm not sure how far away the tent is, but it kind of always felt to me like um, they're probably like Abraham's really wealthy, right? And so the place where they're doing all like the cooking and stuff like that is probably not like hard connected to the place where they're eating. It's probably not like a cafeteria. Um, there's probably some space there, I would figure. And so over in the tent where they do all the cooking and stuff, like that's probably out of earshot.
Mm.
So Sarah can just hear what God is saying, and I don't think there's any possible way Abraham heard her laughing. I think she's just laughing basically to herself. That's what I get from the story. But God immediately knows. Why did she laugh when I said that? And she says, "Wait, I didn't laugh." And God says, "No, but you did laugh." And so uh, they name the child Isaac. And like, do you know what Isaac means? It means laughter. Isn't that interesting? The child of the
Mm.
promise is named Laughter because of this event. Sarah was afraid and laughed. Maybe just I don't know. Like at first, maybe it's like I just don't believe this could happen. I'm 90. What are you talking about, God? Well, why are you laughing? Well, I'm not laughing. No, you are. And
Yeah.
you're gonna call the baby laughter. But you're gonna have laughter. It's coming. This is gonna be a great blessing for you. And it was a great blessing for Sarah.
Mm.
So even though this thing happened, God still had really, really like he had such positivity towards Sarah. Like he loved her and he wanted to bless her. And
Mm.
it's interesting. And he asked Abraham, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" You see that word Lord? It's in all caps. Is anything too hard for Yahweh Adonai?
Yeah.
And so just the writer of Genesis is trying to be extra respectful here. And we do that too. Is anything too hard for God? Is really what that says. So,
Mm.
um, so yeah, really interesting. Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return, and Sarah will have a son. And so he just declares it
Yeah.
again. So really interesting.
Yeah. So like again, there's that reiteration of, guys, I'm serious. This is the way like, I'm not just
Yeah.
joking. Like, I'm not, I, I don't know. Like, I would think God would have some kind of sense of humor, like
Oh, I
in
think
some
so.
way.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think he's just like, no, I'm not just pulling your leg. I'm not just saying this for the sake, like, this is an actual promise. So,
Hmm.
and that's why I love what he says there. Is anything too hard for me? I
Yeah.
think that's that. It's like a sarcastic, like, really?
Yeah.
Really? You've seen me do all of this stuff. I've, you know, but yet you still think like this thing,
Yeah.
creating a child, like at your age is too hard for me. Really?
Yeah.
So I think, oftentimes like that's what we were just chatting about earlier is we just, these things that we know should be impossible for us as humans. And because we've seen it and we're in it, like we like, oh no, that can't happen. And it's a worthwhile thing to really sit on and go like, are there things in my life that like, just because I think it's impossible, like I'm just not going to even touch it. I'm not even going to leave it because
Mm.
it's not worth it because it's impossible. Oh, I'm not going to go to this country, or I'm not going to be obedient to what God's asked me to do because it's just not, I don't have this skill, or I don't have the finance, or I don't have this. But God's promised you that at some point, but we just shut it out. We shut it down, or we explain it away. And it's worth sitting with that phrase, is anything too hard for the Lord, especially if he's
Yeah.
said it. Like, sit on that. I don't know where God's going to lead you with it, but sometimes we've got to take that step and go, all right, God, you said it. I'm going to just do it.
Yeah.
And then the second thing for me that really from this event is that, again, when we're talking about God's supremacy, his omnipotence, like he just knows everything, he knew she laughed.
Yeah.
So we think like, oh no, I can hide this part of my life. I can just be sneaky here, or as long as this person doesn't see it, or y- yeah, they might not, but God sees it all. He knows it all.
Hmm.
So it's a very sobering passage to kind of think through, especially when you start applying it to like, what am I doing right now?
Yeah. 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 No,
Yeah.
definitely well said. Yeah, well said. I love it. I love it. Then, kind of as the meal's wrapping up, um, this is another one of those times where it's only happened one other time, um, where God takes counsel with what seems like lesser beings. One of the first times, one of the first times God takes counsel is in the creation. Let us make man in our image, right? Um, but uh, but that's just like him taking counsel with himself, I think. Then there's the situation with the Tower of Babel,
Mm.
and God says, "I'm going to come down and see, like, I'm going to see this tower for myself, and that way I'll know." And that's really interesting that God would do that. And the same thing with Sodom and Gomorrah. Um, he's saying like the wickedness of this place has come up before me, and so I've decided to go down to see whether it's really as wicked as all that. It's interesting that he says I have decided to go down and see, but he's sending those two angels. Um,
Mhm.
just an interesting fact that God is not personally going there in human form to look. He just is able to see it, and the two angels go there and they experience it, and they bring some kind of judgment. It's really interesting. We'll look at that. Uh,
Yeah.
so, but God does something really interesting here. He says, "Shouldn't I tell Abraham what's going on since he's going to become the father of a great many number of nations? Like, shouldn't I talk to Abraham about this?" And that's really
Mm.
fascinating because God tells Abraham, "This is what I'm planning to do, but I'm letting you know I'm going to save Lot. Like your nephew's going to be okay." Basically, it's like it just seems like a very kind thing that God doesn't have to do. It just seems like a very
Mhm.
kind thing that God is cluing Abraham in on this. Imagine how worried you would be if you knew Lot was over there and you had no idea about this meal or anything like that, and just one day fires raining down and there's just destruction, and the entire valley, like 5 cities in the valley, are just wiped off the earth. I think you would be in deep grief, and I think God's just trying to spare Abraham from that. So,
Yeah.
um, interesting.
Yeah. And I think also, when you think about it, I think I've heard a few arguments and people say that, oh, God changes his mind. And us
Hmm.
as humans, we can change God's mind. And I don't think that's the case here. I think this is a deeper lesson that God is teaching Abraham is like, listen, I'm just, I'll, you know,
Yeah.
I will do what I need to do because and no matter what we argue around that, like God will always be just. He cannot lie. He cannot go against his nature. He's not evil. No evil can come from him. So whatever he does is just. And in
Yeah.
this case, I think it's more bringing us into that and going, you know what, like, I want you part of my story,
Hmm.
but there's I want to almost call it a sobriety around it. It's like, this is God. Like, if he can wipe out, like you say, an entire valley,
Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah.
people like this, there's a humility that we go like, okay, I'm not going to just beg God for stuff. It's also like, I remember who I'm talking to, but if this is important enough to me, I can bring it to God. Doesn't mean I'm always going to get it. Doesn't mean I'm always going to change his mind because he'll always do what's just. But I think he's inviting us into that with the humility of, I'm not in charge. I cannot see what he sees.
Hmm.
So, but I can still approach him and ask him for these things. I can still have a conversation. And I think that's the important part here. It's like, I think we often just go like, well, he's just going to do what he's going to do. Or, we go to the other extreme and like we beg and we beg and we beg. And it's like, but that's not part of my plan. And so I feel like there's a middle ground there where it's like a bit of back and forth, but we come in humility. And it's not like I'm not going to beg God over and over and over and over and over and over for months and years. But then I do think if we don't ask, I think you get what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
mincing my words here, but trying to get a middle ground of not the extremes.
Yeah. Yeah. There, there is this what I find to be an impenetrable mystery about prayer. Um, and don't anybody who's hearing this, do not let this shake your faith. Like just because I don't know what the answer is right now doesn't mean there isn't one. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that I have personally struggled with. And I've not ever heard a really good explanation about it yet. It seems like there's type A and type B prayers. And one is, uh, God, please don't do that. Please change your mind. I don't want this to happen. And God listens to those. And the other type is, not my will, but your will be done. And I just do not know how to marry those two concepts. I personally can't tell what I'm supposed to pray. Am I supposed to do them both, or am I supposed to do like intercessory prayers until I feel in my spirit that it's just not God's will, and then I switch to type B? Um,
Mm.
we have Jesus in Gethsemane saying, "If it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done."
Hmm.
But then you have this exchange where Abraham is saying, "Wait, you can't destroy the righteous along with the wicked. That's very far from you. You wouldn't do that. You're a righteous God." And so it's almost like
Hmm.
Abraham is begging God, remember who you are. How could you destroy the righteous along with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the whole city? And then it looks like that prevails upon God. It looks like it. Well, if there's 50, I won't destroy it for the sake of that. Now, does God know for certain that he's not going to destroy it for the sake? Yeah, he does. Does he know if there's 50 people? He knows that. He knows if there's less than 10, he knows. So you're
Hmm.
not giving God any new information. But Abraham doesn't in this case. This is a type A prayer. Abraham says, it's not your will be done. It's please don't do this. Please don't do this. Don't hurt people that are innocent. And God listens to this prayer, and he doesn't hurt people that are innocent, which is just interesting. And so if you kind of have that idea in your mind, intercession type A, or just change something about this situation, type A, and God, I'm submitting to you, let your will be done, type B. They both happen, and I cannot discern a pattern. So if there's somebody out there that's really, really wise and wants to put something in the comments, I promise I would read it with an open mind and consider your
Yeah.
position. But I
Totally.
this is something for me. It really challenging.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of resources on prayer and a lot of books and that kind of thing. And I think modeling what we see in the scripture, because then we see the Lord's prayer as well when he teaches the
Yeah,
disciples how to pray.
yeah,
Um, and we see a lot of the communication when we get there in Psalms on how David speaks to God. Like he goes from all of those. So I think there is that balance between them, and I think it depends on the situation. But I would pause here and just go, well, prayer is important.
yeah,
There's
hundred
no
percent.
you can't
Yeah,
skip it. Let's
of
not
course.
stop
Yeah,
praying because we might not know the best way. But I think
perfect.
speak, and as we go, we'll learn, and as we go
Yeah,
along, we'll get better.
yeah,
Um, and the spirit within us will also help us to pray the right things at the right time. So I think you know, a lot of people are afraid of praying because they want to do it the right way and the right words and all
hmm,
that kind of stuff. If you read a lot of scripture, like the, there's so many communications with God, and I think we can draw from that. This one of Abraham, he's bold. He's like, God, you
yeah,
can't do this. You know? Then you see David, who's all over the show, and then we see the disciples who have communication with God, and it's like, okay, I'm sure we can find in our humility and our just plainness, just
hmm,
say what you need to say to God and learn as
yeah.
you go. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so well said. Just because we don't understand prayer very well, or at least I don't, um,
Yeah.
that's no excuse not to pray. We should just be doing it. Be obedient and do it, even if you don't really
Yeah.
understand. And if you know what, if you don't understand, it's okay to ask for wisdom. And and when you're seeing like, you know, maybe I haven't seen a direct answer, well, just keep at it. Just keep at it. Like you have been told to pray every day for your daily bread, and so that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. And we'll know someday. We'll know someday. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
be obedient. I love what's happening here. Uh, Abraham is saying, God, it would be so unfair if you killed 50 righteous people, wouldn't you spare the city for the sake of 50 righteous people? Abraham doesn't want those cities destroyed. There's a lot of people and animals and stuff there, and there's children. I mean, like, Abraham's heart's broken. And
Mm.
he says, don't destroy the wicked along with the, or don't destroy the righteous along with the wicked. Um, what if there's 50 people? And God says, I won't destroy. If I find 50, I won't destroy. He says, well, what if there's 45? God says, for 45, I would not destroy. What if there's only 40? I wouldn't, I would save it for the sake of 40. And then
Mhm.
Abraham gets a little self-conscious, I think, and I would too. Uh, Please don't be angry. And I'm just going to speak again. I've taken it upon myself. I'm only dust, and I've taken it upon myself to talk to the Creator. What if there's only 30?
Mhm.
And God says, for the sake of the 30, I'll spare the whole place. Like, okay, I've taken it upon myself to speak to the Lord, and I'm only dust. What if there's only 20? For the sake of 20, I would spare the whole place. Please don't be angry. I'm going to talk one more time. Please don't be angry at me. Um, what if there's only 10? And he says, for the sake of 10, I would spare the whole place. And then it just says, then God finished speaking to Abraham. So I don't know if Abraham could have gone lower, or if God just
Mm.
decided like this is enough, and he put the, what do they call it? Put the kibosh on that conversation. But
Yeah.
Abraham is like, uh, I think he understands what he's doing. I think. Um, I'm talking to the creator of the world who is bringing judgment, and I'm negotiating for people that would be just awful to me if I was over there. Um,
Mm.
please don't be angry at me, God. And remember, I'm only dust. I know what I am. I'm not anything like you. I'm not accusing you of being wrong. Um,
Yeah.
it seems to me like you don't want to destroy the righteous along with the wicked. That doesn't seem fair. And God is listening to this. And so I love this Genesis 18 passage. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is right? And that is so good. It's so powerful.
Mm. Yeah, I think, another question maybe we can throw in here is, like Abraham's negotiating for God to not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because of those righteous people that might be in the city. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we know that Sodom and Gomorrah gets destroyed. So does that mean God found no righteous? We know, like, obviously with Lot and his family, like
Yeah,
that could have been the 10, and everyone else, were they? And I think by this very statement, I think we got to understand, if God destroyed them because He found none that were righteous, then
yeah,
He found none that were righteous. God, in this, and He would do what is just.
yeah,
And I think that's a big question. It's like, all right, at the end of the day, was then really none found
yeah,
righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah? And I would venture to say, yeah, he found none other than Lot's
yeah.
family.
Hmm.
Um, Even though they did some questionable things, like they tried to do the right thing most of the time, but we're
Yeah,
compromised.
yeah, yeah. 100%. I'm in agreement with you. I think that he didn't find righteous when he got there. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this kind of paints the picture of what they found, and it's, when you go and read it, it looks like what, from my understanding, is that this was a very depraved city sexually
Yeah,
as well. And so, like, they were trying to basically sexually assault these angels, having
yeah,
seen them and like, oh, these guys look attractive and let's like do what we want with them. And so,
yeah,
again, the idea of these physical angels being physically present enough that everyone in the
yeah,
city could see them. And
yeah,
how depraved the city was is they all gathered around Lot's house and they like try to bash in the doors and like, I mean, think about that kind of, like,
yeah,
how depraved is that? I don't think we can really understand that. Like, oh
yeah,
wow, we saw someone interesting looking going into that house. Well, let's go,
yeah.
sexually assault them.
Oh, I know.
So
It's totally wild. Yeah, it's totally wild. And Lot's response, I think, is also wild. Please don't hurt these strangers. I have virgin
Yeah, have a
daughters.
daughter.
Do what you want with them. Like
Yeah.
that's
So,
doesn't seem like there are things in the Bible that just are not comprehensible. I think.
no.
I think because I can't
But I think
comprehend
this,
why that would even be a consideration.
but I think this is what we were raising, and I think the deeper question for us all is like, okay, there is always like, I think it's in Psalm, I can't remember where now, but it says, stand at the ancient paths and follow where the people, where wisdom and the people of old went. And
Hmm.
there's always more than one path. And so in this case, Lot, why does he always choose the worst path? Like almost he knows there's a better way. Like surely there was another way other than offer my daughter or, go to this place or compromise in this area. And like you mentioned earlier, where do you think his daughters learned how to compromise and choose
Yeah.
the worst path? From their dad? And I
Yeah.
think just, even as parents, I think it's a big
Yeah.
question to ask ourselves. It's like, what are our kids learning from us about God and what
Yeah.
direction of life to go in and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
man, yeah, he definitely compromises a lot.
Yeah, I think so. I suppose if we're being extra, extra, extra kind to Lot, um, maybe he really does think that these strangers came under my roof, and hospitality to strangers is such an important value to me that
Hmm.
I would give up anything else to not betray them. I'm going to keep them safe no matter what. Maybe that's something that he really believes is the right thing to do. Um, but I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong that you would put strangers above your own family. I think you should do everything you possibly can for strangers,
Mm.
but I think that your own family, like if you like, just imagine being Lot's daughters. How uncertain would you go through life knowing that if it came down to it, my dad would pick a stranger over me? Like, I think that that would really hurt a family. So,
Mm.
um, so yeah, I'm just not sure if that's good. One of the tricks we can do is uh, we can take the way we feel about things today, which is not perfect, but we have like a lot more sensibility around things like family connections and stuff like that. I think that we're better at that today than they were in Lot's day. Um, I think our attitude toward things like slavery and indentured servitude and stuff like that. I think our viewpoint now is better than it was when the Bible was written. I think the Bible is written in such a way that it condemns those things, but they're still happening all the time. So
Mm.
I think that we've grown as a species. Humanity has grown, but we've also lost some things. So in our culture today, we're like maybe not as sexually decadent as they were in Sodom and Gomorrah,
Mm.
but um, like rampant pornography, like the average human being sees a lot more naked women than anybody did in the ancient world. And we consider people in the ancient world to be extremely promiscuous, like in Corinth,
Mm.
for example, just they have temple prostitution, and it's just a totally bad thing. So one of the tricks we can do is we can take our viewpoint on family and respect for women, for example, and we can look back on um, the ancient world and go like, wow, they really got it wrong. Like this is pretty disgusting what Lot did. Um, but you could do the same thing um, in the ancient world if they could see us. Hey, you know what? My word is my bond. You say you're going to do something, you do it, even if it leads to your death. This is a matter of honor. You never compromise. Look at
Mm.
how weak you guys are morally. You say you're going to do things, your politicians get elected in office, and they don't do anything that they said they were going to do, and everybody just goes along
Mm.
with it. You say you're going to get married forever, and then you don't. You just feel like it's not for you anymore, and you let your emotions run wild. And you look at how
Yeah.
brave people were going into wars and stuff, and how I think comparatively uh, we just don't have a lot of that in our culture now. So if you
Mm.
sort of add all that up, you might get a idea of what heaven thinks of humanity. Because in heaven there is no such thing as uh, sexual assault, right? And so they're seeing the horrible things that go on here on this earth, and I think they're probably just shocked at how uh, patient and tolerant God is being. God, why don't you judge? This is just terrible. And so
Mm.
eventually things get bad enough that God does judge. And in the end of all
Yeah.
things, God will judge. And so if he doesn't, then that would be wrong. If he doesn't judge, it would be wrong. And so
Yeah.
so I think final judgment is a thing that's going to come. And this
Yeah.
story right here, this is like a regular pattern that we've already started to see, right? Um, God makes a perfect garden. He says everything here is exactly how we want it. Don't do this
Mm.
one thing, because if you do, death is the outcome. And they do the thing, right?
Yeah.
And so they start dying. And
Yeah.
then God says, well, you need to, like, sin is crouching at your door. You need to resist it, because if you don't, it's going to get you. And what happens is sin gets them. The only people that are left that are good, they're trying, is Noah and his family. And so then there's a judgment, water over the whole earth, everybody dead. And there's just one way to be saved, right? God brings them through. And then this thing again. This city is evil, it's terrible, and I'm going to destroy it, but I'm going to get the righteous out of there. And I said I would never flood the whole world again, and I'm not going to, but I reserve the right to blow up 5 cities in a row. And that's what's going to happen. Uh,
Mm.
and so this sort of pattern that we're seeing set up, like, it's only Genesis 19, and we've already seen this happen multiple times. Does that not
Yeah.
tell us something about how God's operating in the world now? There's going
Yeah.
to come a judgment at the end someday, but in the meantime, there's little judgments here and there where God just, this is not good, and there's going to be destruction. Um,
Yeah.
and the temptation is, God, you didn't act fast enough, or you didn't do a good enough job, or something like that. But there's no
Mm.
accounting for the sinfulness inside of humans. We just God's wiped the slate clean over and over and over again, and we just keep going back to the mud. We just keep doing it, which is not God's fault.
Totally.
Yeah, not God's fault.
No, and I think, you know, we won't go through all these questions, but I think, I'll try and put this into the description below the slide deck. And, I always encourage you, go and look through these questions again and again and make some notes. But definitely think about, like, the current situation in your own life, when it comes to sin and
Yeah,
wickedness around us, like, what's our relationship to that? Are we going to be like Lot, or are we going to be like, we'll look at some other scripture in a bit, but it's something to take serious enough, because sin, the wages of sin is death. Like,
yeah,
that's where it ends. So we won't
yeah,
get too much into that right now, but just a
yeah,
good thought to keep having.
yeah. So the city, they've surrounded, right, and they're telling Lot, "You've got to get out of here. You've got to get out of here." Lot's daughters had, like, basically fiancés, and
Mm.
Lot went to them to tell them of the coming destruction. They didn't believe him, and they got lost in the destruction. So they're just and Lot does the same thing Abraham does. Please don't destroy everything. Let me go to a city. I don't have to go up to the caves. Let me go to a city. And the angels actually agree to this. Sure, okay, we'll spare that one city. It's a little city. We'll spare it. Run there fast, though. I can't do anything until you're out of here.
Mm.
And Lot is just not. He's not moving, you know. And so the angels physically take him and just bring him out of the city. And they say, "Flee for your life, run away, because the destruction is imminent." And and they tell him something really important: don't look back, just run and don't look back.
Mm.
Um, but Lot's wife looks back, and so I, when I was a kid and I read that, I kind of thought like, man, God has such weird rules. Like, don't look back at an explosion because you're gonna see something that God's doing, and He doesn't want you to see
Yeah.
Him. It's something like that. But I just don't think that's it. Um, that phrase, "Don't look back," that might be an indication that Lot's wife really liked the city and she wanted to be part of it. Like, she's probably looking back in regret
Mm.
and longing that the city's being destroyed rather than being happy that God's judgment is coming to stop all this wickedness. She's bummed out because she just wants the wickedness to continue. That's more like what I think is happening now. And that's why she gets taken up in the destruction. Even though she's sort of like has escaped, quote unquote, her heart wasn't,
Mm.
her heart wasn't righteous. And so she got swept up in the destruction, which I think is
Yeah.
just unfortunate. Um, because I don't think looking at it was really the problem because Abraham is looking at it. He's seeing the smoke rising. He's watching what's going on. He doesn't get turned into a pillar of salt. So
Yeah.
I don't think it can be that. I just don't think it can be that noticing that there's a giant fireball behind you is wrong. I think it's, oh man, I wish that the city was still there. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it was a visual thing because I think neighboring cities and people would see this kind of destruction. Like
Yeah,
it's not something small. It's not like a little house fire that's concealed in the middle of nowhere. This was like an entire city wiped out
yeah,
in a moment. So, I don't think it's a visual thing, but definitely our attitudes, the way we see sin, the way we see God, the way we hold on to the past sometimes, I think that is like, hey, we need to check our attitude, check our heart.
mhm,
Um, so I think again, wrestle with some of those questions, and we look at Luke 17:32. He says, "Remember Lot's wife."
yeah,
And we see like, what do you think he meant? Is it if it like was it because she just looked at something? I don't think so, because then we would all just be a pillar of salt. Because we've all seen things we shouldn't have seen.
yeah,
But it definitely, I think, is a whole direction change when we're looking at repentance, because the people in Sodom and Gomorrah had the opportunity to repent and didn't.
yeah,
And so I think it definitely has that in mind, as like, right, when we make that turn, we turn fully to God and turn away wholly from whatever was our past.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That verse from Luke 17. Um, let's just read that really quick. Let me do
Yeah.
verse 30 through 34, maybe 35. Um, this is very commonly what's thought of as like connected to the rapture, but I'm not totally convinced about that. So this is Luke 17, starting in verse 30. It will be just like this on the day that the Son of Man is revealed. So that would be like the day Jesus returns. On that day, no one who is on the housetop with possessions inside should go down to get them. So if you got possessions and you're on the housetop, just don't even worry about them. Likewise, no one in the field should go back for anything. So if you're outside the city, don't run back into the city to get your cat or anything like that. Like just and then verse 32, he says, "Remember Lot's wife." Verse 33, "Whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will preserve it. I tell you that on that night, two people will be in one bed, and one will be taken and the other one left. Two people will be grinding grain together, one will be taken and the other one left." And then the disciples ask, "Where would they be taken? Where, Lord?" And he says, "Where there's a dead body, that's where the vultures will gather." So it's this judgment verse, and really, really interesting. Judgment's coming. Don't look back. The day
Mm.
of the Son of Man. Don't look back. Remember Lot's wife. And so, um, really, really interesting. We'll have to explore more of what that means, but
Yeah.
uh, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think it's definitely just a good, point to pause and go like, all right,
Mhm.
what does that mean? Like, it's not, I don't think it can just be a visual thing. It's got
Yeah,
to be something to do with our attitude and how we see sin in our own lives and in the city, in our communities and that kind of thing. So,
yeah, yeah,
um, right. And then, yeah, we see the destruction really. And we kind of covered this already. But, God remembered Abram and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. And I love that because,
yeah.
again, it refers to that interaction, that communication that Abram had with God and like reasoning, like, what if this and what about Lot? And God's like, yeah, I'll remember that. And it's not like God forgot. We've mentioned this in previous episodes,
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah,
like God's actively thinking about, okay, you know what, I'm going to remember Lot, bring him and his family out. And yeah, so we see this destruction in this whole city. Like I say, I don't think it was a small event. It was massive. It was, like I said, the effects. I watched the documentary a couple of months ago about this, and like
mm,
the stone in that valley is so unique. It's not something that you would typically find anywhere else on the planet.
mhm,
And they think that's where Sodom and Gomorrah was. And so the rocks and the stones that are there resemble the sulfur and like all, I can't remember all the other chemicals and stuff. And it's like
yeah.
they could imagine that would be what came down in like these big balls of fire, basically just wiping everything out. Um, so if I remember, if I can find the link to that, I'll put it in the description. But it was quite interesting.
Super cool.
I don't think we need to cover anything else here, really.
Yeah, I think we can move on. Start getting this thing wrapped up. Uh,
Yeah,
so there's this big destruction, right? And then there's this sort of this aftermath. Um,
yeah,
so even though they
which
escape to
which is wild
Zoar,
on its
yeah,
own. Yeah,
yeah, even though they escape to Zoar, um, Lot doesn't stay in Zoar. He gets worried and he goes up to live in the caves, which is where he didn't want to go originally. Please don't make me go live in the caves. Let me go to Zoar. So he
Mhm.
gets to go to Zoar and he ends up in the caves anyway. And his daughters basically say, the world has ended. Like everything we ever knew is gone. And so we have to preserve seed. Like there's nobody left to preserve seed of our father. And so they cause Lot to get drunk and they end up having sex with their own father, um, which I just think is just such a terrible choice. Just
Yeah,
such a terrible choice.
yeah,
Goodness. Don't you check to see if Abraham is still alive before you go that drastic? I mean, that uh
mm,
just seems like they're just not thinking here. But anyway, um this works. They both get pregnant and they produce the nations Moab and the Ammonites, who show up over and over and over and over and over again in the Old Testament, and they drive the people of God crazy, doing all kinds of evil and wicked things. But
mm.
they also participate in the coming seed, because Ruth is a Moabitess, and so um, we see God even using
Yeah,
this event in His redemption work. So it's pretty wild.
yeah, yeah. And I think just it's what we were saying earlier, just to kind of wrap this up. But the point is, I think we rush into things so emotionally because they had literally just been where there are other people, but for they feared. And so surely there was more than that one option than sleeping with your own father. Like there's,
Yeah.
our reasoning, sometimes we get so caught up in the moment, so caught up in the reasoning, we forget the past. We just rush into things. And we've seen that in the work we've done with people and
Hmm.
marriages, people just dive into that stuff and it's like make emotional decisions, but that's not always going to be very helpful. So there's this case of like we sometimes need to slow it down and think like what are the long-term consequences. And this had some good ones because God made them good at the end of the day, but at the end of the day there's a lot of negative consequences that come from our in the moment
Yeah.
decisions, that emotional like outburst basically, and just do what we have to do. And then, so we've got to sometimes just pause, slow it down, pray, think it through, bounce it off other people, friends, family, trusted people, and go, all right, what's going to be a better option? There's never just one or the other. There could be some other options in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
So So here's just a couple of extra threads. Again, we want go read through all these questions, read the scriptures for yourself, and just process, like, and ask God to reveal, like, what is He showing through all of this. But intercession's a big one. We've spoken about that. Sodom is not mentioned just in
Yeah.
Genesis. So look at the other passages. We look at God. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we
Hear
talk
that.
about God being the judge.
Yeah.
So something's
Yeah. Oh,
going on there.
you keep them. Okay. No worries. Yeah. So God, yeah, the judge of all the earth. This shows up over and over again. Of course, God's going to judge everything at the end in Revelation 19. Here's a super interesting salt and light. You're the salt of the earth. Salt is a preservative in the ancient world. It's like basically their form of refrigeration. It prevents things
Mhm.
from rotting. And so, in light of what we just read about Sodom and Gomorrah, is it possible that good, righteous believers in the world are the thing that are preventing God from bringing final judgment upon the world as it exists right now? The world's getting more wicked, and it seems like there are less righteous people, but yet in tribulation, it seems like we get more righteous people showing up. So
Mm.
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then Luke 17, remember Lot's wife, and we kind of looked at that a little bit. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, these are definitely ideas worth thinking through.
Yeah, and like Jared said, this is going to take us a long, long time, maybe the rest of our lifetime, but it's worth it anyway. But
Yeah,
uh, as we get through the Old Testament and into the New Testament, a lot of this stuff just naturally pops up, the themes, the patterns, and you start going, okay, well, this is something we've heard and seen before, just in a different form. But
hmm
we want to always encourage you, keep reading the scripture for yourself.
yeah,
Um, we like bringing it home. I have asked some of these, and I'll put this again in the description. But just like, what does this mean in our daily life today as well? These aren't just stories that were meant for us to read as history. Yes, they were, but they're part of today's story as well. And so don't take it lightly. Sit with them, think them through, pray them through. And if you need to have a conversation with someone you trust that's wise and has walked this road, then please do that. I
yeah,
think it's important enough, especially when it comes to sin in our lives. It's like, it's not something we can just brush aside and ignore. It's something we
yeah,
need to deal with quite radically. So, kind of broken that into two parts for you guys, but we'll leave you to look at that as well. As much as we do this, like, it's also for us, we take a look at our own lives. It's not a case of like we tell you what to do and then, oh no, you know. But anyway,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
some key scriptures. Again, I'm going to just add this in for you guys. And then we always say this, but please read it for yourself.
yeah,
Uh, the Bible has way more answers than the thousands of podcasts and podcast hours. And then we rely on the Holy Spirit to guide us and to give us
hmm
the interpretation and understanding, uh, more than people, more than even what you could get from us. Read scripture and trust God to bring that to life for you.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's about it for
That's
us
it.
for this episode.
That's it. Thanks everybody for being on. If you found this enlightening, be sure to share it. Be sure to subscribe, and that really helps us get reach. And we're not actually very good at being consistent. We're trying to be better, but because of our lack of consistency, our reach is not very wide yet. So, but we hope
Yeah.
that someday this whole thing like becomes something that you can like really look back on and just
Hmm.
like maybe if you don't agree with all our conclusions, you can kind of see how we reason things through and sort of start doing
Yeah.
that for yourself. So that's always we just want you to think about what it says for real and not just make it fit whatever your preconceived notions are. So
Hmm.
that's sort of why we're doing this project. But yeah,
Yeah.
really, really great. Brother Old, as always, thank you, sir.
Brother Jared, yes, as always. Appreciate you all, and yeah, thanks for listening to us, and we'll see you soon, hopefully. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.